Hi everyone, it's your boy Zach, and you probably remember, was it like 2016 or so? They had this guy, Billy McFarland, and he ran into the ground this festival called Fyre Festival, which was actually got the most famous for just showing the really paltry prepared meal, which is like a slice of cheese and some wilted lettuce and some other crap. Um, and it was huge news at the time. There were two competing documentaries that both did really well. And for a while there, it was kind of like a meme. And then Billy went to jail for several years. He fought it for a couple years, went for a couple years, and then just got out like, I think like 2 years ago. Immediately started talking about organizing Fyre Festival 2, which you would think would be part of his parole, that he wouldn't be able to do something like that, but he did. He started announcing it. He talked about it's going to be in this city in Mexico. They said, we have no permits for anything called Fyre Festival 2. He's like, yeah, actually, it's in this other city. And then he just kind of quit and said, I'm just selling the Fyre Festival name. I think it sold for like, not a lot, but like 250 grand. Maybe less. Maybe that's what it was originally for sale for. And then he announced he was doing something called PHNX Festival, which was PHNX. And everyone kind of like gathered around to make fun of it. But then something amazing happened. Yeah, it still failed, but it was successful in everything that he failed at before. So before, he was able to get like a bunch of celebrities and get them to make this thing go really viral. And he got, just a massive crowd, but he couldn't handle it. It's funny, I have friends from China. One time I explained to them the loaves and the fishes story from the New Testament, and they just thought it was hilarious. I was like, no. They just imagined it was some sort of like, yakety sax was playing in the background. It's like this guy in the desert just pulling like endless entire fishes out. And I was explaining, like, no, the point was that what he was saying sustained them so they could just get by with very little food. It wasn't like an infinite fish and bread hack from a magical basket. But yeah, they're like, hey, tell the story about the fish that come out the basket forever. But he wasn't able to pull a loaves and fishes situation with the first Fyre Festival. It was a complete disaster. People were like puking and passing out from the heat. They were able to get everyone to the island, and then the island was a disaster, and then people wanted to leave. They couldn't get off the island. There wasn't food, there wasn't water. It was so bad he went to jail for it, and he has to pay restitution of like 25 million. I saw an interview with him where he said something very interesting. He said, if it would have been successful, he still would have been guilty of all of his crimes, because his crimes were lying to investors. Lying to investors doesn't become not a crime if you magically do it. You still got a bunch of investors from lying. So, like I said, he tried to do Fyre Festival 2. It didn't work. It just got canceled and returned, and he sold the rights to the name. And then he did PHNX Festival. And he went to this, I forget what it was called, Freedom Key or something like that, in Utila, off the coast of Honduras. And he's been there for like a month. Just like super peppy, super happy, slightly autistic, which if you've ever seen any interview with Billy McFarland, yeah, that's how he always is. And everyone's like, oh, this is a scam. It's not going to happen. It's going to be a failure. And the thing is, it happened. And okay, so he said he was going to get French Montana and some other lesser known rappers. And everyone's like, this isn't going to happen. But it did. They said nobody would show up, and he got about 150 people. They said, everything's going to be terrible. Everything's going to flop. It looks like there's like a live stream, so people like just watched the whole thing. Generator went out for a little bit. The food wasn't great, but it was better than the, prison slop they got last time. And the last time they were charging people thousands of dollars. It was like a supposed to be this incredible event. But it got me thinking because after, I think there's some events scheduled for today, but it's basically over. And he was able to get a couple videos of, it's funny, I just found out what palapas were from like season 4 of Silicon Valley, which came out a while ago. And then he was always like, he's like, we're building some palapas. It's like, I never heard this word palapas. And then I heard it twice in 1 week from 2 different people. So they built a stage, palapas, smaller palapas, just like a thatched hut, essentially. And they got 150, 200 people to go there. Now, were most of the people there crew and workers from the event and locals who were given tickets for free? Yes. Were there people who paid to go there? Looks like a couple dozen. The DJ, who was like the best, he was called 220 Kid. So, of course, he's like in his 30s. But he took the job for no money. And you would think, he basically explained it. I think he said his mom died, and his family, they vowed just to say yes to things and just go on adventures. So he gets an offer to be a DJ for no money on this microscopic island with a guy who famously failed doing this before, and he just said, fuck it. And he was like super nice. He would say like, hey, don't make fun of the guy. Hey, here's the food. It's not great, but there's some people here, and we're going to try and have a good time. And it looked like it basically looked like a neighborhood barbecue. But the thing is, at the same time this is happening, 2 other things happened. Similar, is that Eric July just completely flamed out. So he's now been reduced to begging for help, and he needs your support. And his support is to do something that he's already done and was already doing. Like he had like it's called like the Mac Daddy level, like a monthly subscription, and that's supposed to fund animations. And now his goal is, give me 150 grand and I'll make 10 or 11 animations to promote. So you're paying for the honor of funding his commercials. Not essentially, that's like what you're doing. And he just got to like 100, I was going to say backers, simps, for this endeavor. And it's one of those things where there's this saying that, if you can have 1,000 fans, you can do good. Here's the other thing. There's also the merit of having much fewer, like 150. It looks like he's probably going to top out at about 150, 200 suckers paying for his advertising. But something happened recently where I had a book, LAX, which I love. I was very excited about, and it didn't sell very well. In fact, it only sold well enough to cover the cost of what I put into it, but then I had to print it and fulfill it, and that was basically the same amount of money. So basically it covered like half of the complete cost. But after fulfilling, and I even gave people who bought 1 copy 2, there's still 200 left, and it's a good book. It's got good word of mouth, so I can sell it as an add-on for the next 5 projects and probably sell out of those 200 and then break even. And here's the weirdest thing. I don't love this book any less for only getting 150 people. My feeling is, there's a bunch of factors. Ethan was covering Eric the other day, and he was like, because Eric always does this thing where he goes, you asked for that. And it's like, I think people are just being polite. Like, you go to get a signing, and you're like, oh, so are you doing anything with, I don't know, animation? So he's like, you asked for this. And Ethan said very simply, is like, people don't want ISOM, they want Spider-Man. There was a crazy period of time that's been over for several years where Spider-Man comics were bad and the writer was calling everyone Nazis. And it was like, what the fuck? Especially if you've been reading Spider-Man for 20, 30, 40 years, it's shocking. So you kind of deal with it in a bunch of different ways. And then this alternative is presented. And it's like, we're not going to call you Nazis, and we're not going to be late like other crowdfunders. And we're not going to do this, except for everything was sold on what it wasn't instead of what it is. Even when he tries to promote animation, he just says, we're going to make animation, and we're not going to sell out to the corpos. And he never says, we have a really good idea. These characters are awesome. But he's going to continue to shrink, but I don't think he's going to shrink past, 150 very sad men who believe this stupid shit. So it's kind of an interesting thing where, I can have a book that, didn't make even half of what I'm spending on the first one, and I'm totally happy with it. Now, here's the funny thing. Billy, he's a very upbeat guy, but they're showing him on the last few, basically other people have taken over the promotion, like the DJ and some other people there, because Billy's just kind of, he built up that this was going to be his big redemption. And so if people want to laugh at him, they can. But a funny thing happened in the comments on his TikTok, other people's TikTok, even detractors' TikTok. People say, we said he wouldn't do it, but he did it. It wasn't very big. It wasn't very successful. Quite frankly, it doesn't look like a lot of fun. Your average barbecue would be much more fun than this. But it was like an okay Saturday for some locals. And so the question then becomes, to Billy, to Eric July, to me, is this thing different than your massive success at an earlier time or your massive failure? Is this good for you? Is it fun? And my answer is yes. I had as much fun making LAX as I did on any other book. I absolutely love the book. I'm so happy with it. And I always mention this, but one of the things I never envisioned about making comics and publishing comics is you're just going to see your comics a lot. They're just going to be kind of around. So you're always going to be seeing them. So there's never a time where I see any of my comics where I'm just like, Like every time, if I'm just looking for something, light bulbs or whatever, and then I see a copy of LAX, on top of a box, I'm not just like, move this thing aside. I'm like, all right, man. Like, yeah, we made that. I was like, awesome. So if Billy enjoys hosting parties in Central America for 150 people, he's good. If Eric July likes lying to 150 guys who all look like Zippy the Pinhead, he's good. So it's a matter of perspective and defining what success is, and also to ask yourself, when you were successful earlier, was it really enjoyable, and is your failure now, weirdly enough, just kind of fine? Anyway, thanks for watching. Bye.